Welcome to the Igniting the CEO Within podcast, where we interview successful, high-level professionals to discover lessons they've learned throughout their career that can help ignite that CEO within you. I'm Mark McFatridge, and I'll be your host for the next 15 minutes or so. Our show is sponsored by Quaid, a nationwide community of CEOs and entrepreneurs. Quaid has developed Launchpad, which offers an opportunity for experienced executive coaches to become licensed circle directors. After completing the Launchpad program, you'll lead your own peer advisory circles, helping other CEOs and entrepreneurs excel in their professional and personal lives while providing a community of accountability, challenge, and support. If you'd like to learn more, go to quaidcircle.com. Really excited about our show today. I get to hang out with Tony Gard, who's an executive consultant with Gard Leadership out of Florence, Kentucky. Tony, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mark. I am happy to be here.
Man, I've been looking forward to this. Just your background is really impressive and interesting, and you've had so many cool experiences and have had the opportunity to hang out with a lot of really interesting leaders. And you've had to see some really great leaders and some others that maybe weren't so great. If you could dial it down to one or two things that separate the really great leaders from, well, maybe they're not so great, what would those be?
Yeah, well, that's an absolutely great question, Mark. And I think I can dial it down to one, but then I would break that into two, if
Perfect.
that would make sense.
Yeah.
And if there was a single word that would highlight what great leaders do, I'm going to focus on that one first. And I think by defining the great, you'll understand what I think the bad is.
Yeah.
But it's committed. Just the word committed. Now, I'm going to break that into two directions. One is that first, and this is my personal experience with the leaders that have sort of encouraged me, that have given me the passion to want to charge up the hill with them, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that is first that they're committed to me. They're committed to my growth. They're committed to, uh, and this will sound maybe a little odd, but because they're a better leader for me because I know they have my back. And so they're for me in the process. They're for me in making me a better leader. And so I know they're committed to me first, right? And then secondly, on the committed side, they're committed to the vision or the purpose of what we're doing. And so in the same in that same vein, I've had leaders that I knew weren't committed, right, to what we were doing, and that really undercuts everything that you're trying to do. It makes you second guess not just their leadership, but why you're doing what you're doing. And so I think a committed leader in knowing what they're doing, knowing the purpose of why they're doing it, being able to actually share that with you, and then supporting you in driving towards that goal is probably the most important thing to me. Because and the leaders that I've had, and there's only been a few, honestly, who fully committed to this from that word committed.
Yeah.
When that happens, I mean, you'll run through a wall for those people, and I think that's because. And it makes you want to be better, which is huge. Because when you have a leader who isn't just encouraging you to be better, but makes you want to be better at what you do, it makes everything better. And so for me, I think just the word committed on those two fronts really define a great leader.
Tony, I love that. That's a wonderful use of that word. And like you said, it goes so many different directions, right? And I wholeheartedly agree with you that first and foremost, defining what that vision is, where we're going, is paramount to anybody's success. Being committed to it certainly has to follow that up. But then also the piece that I think ties into what you're saying is not only as a leader, do you need to share what that, what that vision is, how we're going to get there, but the most important part is to be able to communicate to your teammates what their role is in getting there. Right.
Absolutely.
And that's what you're saying. So a lot of that is the commitment to help them understand what their role is and then clearing the way for how we're all going to get there together.
Yeah, Mark, and that's so important, that each person, and again, you're calling something out that's probably, as key as anything, and that is, and what I felt while I was being led by these people is that my role, right, is important. It's not just, collectively we're all charging, like you kind of charging up this hill, but um, you're an important part of this charge, and you need to feel like you're valued, essentially.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that's critical.
I think the other thing that gets left out a lot too is, you can be committed to the vision, you can be committed to your people, but the other thing that has to happen, I think, is if you're truly committed to your people, growing them and putting them in positions to be successful, and then also understanding that their next opportunity may not be with your organization. And
Right.
that's a hard thing to do, right? But if you're truly committed to your teammates and their personal and professional growth, you may not have a role for them, right? There's only one CEO, there's only one CFO, there's only one whatever, and they may need to go somewhere else to reach their actual potential, and you've got to be okay with that.
Yeah. 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 And I think that's really the personal relationship level where you are, you're committed to a person, not an employee, right? But a person that you get to know and you spend time with. And I think, kind of as we dig a little bit deeper here on the reason why great leaders are great leaders is because they care about you. They care about, I know one of the leaders in particular I'm thinking about. I remember as an executive team, we had to lay some people off, and he literally cried.
Mhm.
And he was one of the top people, and he apologized whatever for getting so upset. And I went into his office, and he's like, "You don't understand, these people are my family." And that's a great leader to me, someone who cares deeply for the people that he's leading, and so deeply that he struggles with every step because it affects them in a big way. So
I think that's one. I'm glad you brought that up because I think that's something that's really underappreciated by people who have never sat in the CEO seat and the business owner seat of there's more to it, right? Like it's from the outside. If you've never sat in that seat, it seems like a really easy job, right? You make whatever money you want, you work whatever hours you want, you do whatever you want. And that is so far from the truth. You brought up a piece of every decision you make affects your company, it affects your family, it affects your employees, it affects their families, it affects your customers, it affects their families. It goes on and on and on and on, and that the weight that sits on a leader, a CEO, is huge. And I'm glad you brought that up because I think it gets under appreciated by people who've never sat in that seat.
yeah, and honestly, Mark, that's why I sort of moved into the coaching consulting role, is because so many people at a high level, I don't want to say sit in silence, but they don't have a source where they can, let things go. And I mentioned the great leader that, or at least for me, was a great leader, and I know he is. I don't know why I said for me, but that cried when he had to let some people go. Those people don't see that.
Right.
They just assume he doesn't care. They're just making a numbers thing. And, and that's the hard part for me with leaders, is that there's a lot of, and again, to your point, no one will get this unless they sat in the seat. There is a lot of thankless, stress, worry, effort that's put into taking care of people that never gets acknowledged. And so, and I'm not saying that happens all the time. There are
Oh yeah.
there's always some bad leaders here and there, but for the most part, a lot of the leaders that I have been, thankfully, um, have been really good leaders. Maybe not great, but good, and they care about people. And I think most people lose that, and they think, just like you said, their job is easy, and the higher you get in the and the corporation, the easier it gets. The other thing I would probably point out is that the size of the corporation is hugely impactful. If you have a board, if you have investors, if you're a public company, if you're a there are so many other things that weigh on a CEO that most people just will never even be able to grasp.
Mhm.
I mean, we're talking about, this is like people making it to the NFL kind of thing. It's just most people will never experience it. And so they have no knowledge about what they go through. And so those people need a resource um, more often than not just to get stuff out and to know they have a confidential resource, because, and you know this as well as I do, sitting in that seat, there are some things that you need to get out that you cannot get out inside of your own organization because they're going to
Mhm.
go, wait a minute, Mark's scared,
Right.
or wait a minute, he's questioning this decision, but people you need that. I mean, that's just it gets there's a reason why there's one person at the top, and then why it feels lonely because there's one person at the top. So
Yeah.
it's tough.
No, you're dead on. It's there are, maybe I can count on one hand the number of CEOs that I've talked to that don't have a notepad on their nightstand that they write on at 3 a.m. most every night, right?
Yep.
I
Yep.
mean, and again, it gets underappreciated. Now, certainly there are great opportunities that come along with it, and that can't be understated. But again, I jokingly say, especially when I'm leading large organizations, that I if you looked at my actual hourly rate, it was not very high, right?
That's right. That's
Yeah,
right. And that's a great point, Mark. I know you looked in my history as well, and I've got some folks that I've worked with that, I mean, they work nonstop. I just had lunch with a friend yesterday who's part of a startup, been working it, and he literally says, now he's and I will say this: most leaders at that level were built different. Okay, they were
yeah.
made to lead. That's how they think. That's what they do. And he sleeps. Now, I'm not kidding you. He sleeps every other night
Oh,
and works. Now he's able to do that. There's no way I could do that.
no,
But he'll put in 16-hour days every day.
yeah,
And there's just some people are just built different. They were created to do things differently.
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you have to be, because
Mm.
it is, the rewards are different themselves, right? Like,
Yeah.
the achievement, but it's always that piece of, um how do you continue to focus, right? How do you continue to appreciate how you got there, right? Like, so many folks that you come across, that I come across, don't appreciate the journey as much as they should. It's always cool. We hit that quarterly target. Yeah, we hit our annual target. We hit our whatever. What's next? What's next? What's next? And that's a tough way to live.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and there's no, I don't, you've probably heard this term that success is temporary, right? But it's no more well known than at that position, at a CEO position, because they're not living on, celebrating today. No, we're driving for the celebration for tomorrow, sort of thing. The other thing I'd like to maybe mention quickly, because I mentioned the gentleman that sleeps every other night and, or 16 hours a day. I don't want everyone to think that's what they have to do.
Yeah, I know.
I would not recommend that in fact. And I think that's part of what needs to be shared and encouraged is that you mentioned the journey, right? Well, you're on a journey, but it's not just you, it's your
Right.
family, right? It's your spouse,
Yep.
it's the people that work around you. And you don't want to look back 20, 30, 40 years and go, wow, I I should have spent more time with people. I should have invested in this person. I should have. And sometimes it takes a reminder, an
Yeah.
outside voice to go, hey, let's make sure you're enjoying life too. You're not just, and for those types of people who are just extremely driven, that has to be a constant reminder. Otherwise, it just won't happen. It
Right.
just won't. So
Yeah. Tony, I think you and I have like 3 or 4 more episodes in us to talk about stuff.
yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, this has been a blast. Let me start to wrap it up. If you started to look back at you and you looked at 21-year-old Tony, what is one thing that you wish 21-year-old Tony knew that you've learned over the years?
Um, wow, that's a good question. I would say, Mark, that and this would be clearly the biggest thing for me is um, don't try and do it by yourself. So, and I've got grown kids. They're in their early to late 20s, and I try and always share with them that your growth, your capability, whether that's knowledge, understanding, skill, um, is always going to grow faster with other people. Most of my career was in innovation.
Hmm.
And what I tell everyone, I don't care if it's a single inventor that I meet or walks up to me, or a Fortune 100 company that's trying to solve some big challenge, is you have to do it collectively. Now, often most corporations already understand that, but the value, even from a CEO's perspective, of having another mind in the room, another brain, another person who maybe understands where they sit, understands their environment, um, and there's always other details that flow into um, a problem solution situation, right? Where I've got to
Hmm.
solve something. There's a lot of other factors that come into play at that, and someone else who can speak in that from an objective position rather than a subjective position where emotion is removed, right? I don't have the family, catastrophic things or even good things that are going on, or I don't
Yeah.
have whatever. Someone who has a little more clarity because of um, objectivity.
Yep.
Man, it just makes all the difference in the world. But what I was going to say more on the innovation side is that I know, as from being an innovation director, driving innovation again with some of the biggest companies in the world, is that I am more valuable with Mark than I am by myself.
Hmm.
No question. Because not only is Mark going to come up with new solutions and new things, you're going to drive me to new solutions, which is actually just triple our output, right? And
Yeah.
so, and it'll just keep going back and forth. So, the value of having um, a confidential resource and someone who can help you see things clearer, right? From again,
Yeah.
is always the benefit. And from a mentor standpoint, for me, from a young 21 year old, getting back to your question, I would say just being more willing to hmm, accept that great leadership is not in me yet.
Hmm. That's awesome.
Yeah, but it will be. But I've got
That's
to I've got to go get that. I'm not just going to create it.
I love it. I
Yeah,
love it. That's
yeah,
amazing. Thank you. Tony, thanks so much for hanging out. Would you do me a favor? Would you share
absolutely.
with our audience what a typical engagement with you looks like? And then more importantly, how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, yeah. No, and I appreciate that, Mark. I appreciate you doing that. Um, so guard leadership is fairly new. So I just came off of a long director of innovation, like I mentioned, for Fortune, big companies. I won't go through all the list, but
Yeah.
and I work with leaders from small companies, mid-size to whatever, and I do consulting as again consulting and coaching. So and a lot of times I'll say this that blends. So it's kind of a little of both. Um, but yeah, as far as how the process works, someone just reaches out to me. They can reach out to me through LinkedIn. That's
Mhm.
probably going to be the easiest way to track me down. Just Tony Guard on LinkedIn. Um, and contact me through there because all of those will come directly to my email. That's going to be the easiest way. And uh, honestly, just we're going to talk through some stuff. You're going to fill out a couple of. We're going to go through an hour conversation, just a free conversation where we sit down and talk about everything that's going on and whether you have issues, don't have issues, whether it's issues within your company, personal issues, faith issues. That's a big part of what I do
Hmm.
is faith as well. That's the side I bring. So the uniqueness for me is on the innovation side. Um, you know, and actually where that is better defined is recognizing that we're not always solving the right problem is the key.
Yep.
We all so and most people don't really maybe they don't fully understand this, but I always say solutions are easy. Defining the right problem is hard. And so we would dig in to see, what the real issue is in encompassing sort of every part of what's driving your leadership at home and at work. And then, figure out a course of action and then work together on getting you where you need to go because um, I'm really about equipping, right? Whether that's with driving you to new thinking or driving you to a new place in your career, and using the resources that I have, the people that I have, the network that I have to
Hmm.
help me do that. So,
Tony, that's amazing. Well, congratulations on launching Guard Leadership and for all that you're doing. And thank you so much for hanging out with me this morning. I appreciate you.
yeah, Mark, I appreciate you. I appreciate the fact that you're doing this, that you've got this podcast. I think you know, I don't know who's listening to it. I'm going to promote it as much as I can. Like I said, I listen to
Awesome.
a lot of your episodes and they're amazing. I think if someone doesn't have a coach or a mentor or something like that, man, these resources are phenomenal to be able to start to get, a glimpse in where you should be, what you could be, all of those wonderful things. So I applaud you for everything you're doing here with the podcast. It's
Awesome.
awesome.
Great. Thank you so much. This has been a blast. All right, y'all, we did it again. We uncovered another amazing leader who was willing to share his insights and experiences with us as we continue to develop that pathway for you to that CEO seat. As we log off, I want to remind you that Igniting the CEO Within is sponsored by Quaid, a nationwide community of CEOs and entrepreneurs. Quaid has created Launchpad, which provides an opportunity for experienced executive coaches to become licensed circle directors and significantly impact the lives of CEOs and entrepreneurs. To learn more, visit quaidcircle.com. Until next time, keep igniting that CEO within you. I'm Mark McFatridge. Thanks for listening.